Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this Tuesday noontime edition of Truly Foundation and the Course in Miracles workbook lessons that we are currently engaged in. We are on day 99 and lesson 99. And my name is Oliver Blue, and I am your temporary guide today on this beautiful Tuesday in April 2022. And again, I am here representing Truly Foundation, a non-profit organization that was co-created by my lovely wife and myself for the sole purpose of sharing advanced spirituality, advanced spiritual teachings for the sole purpose of helping humanity to wake up to a consciousness and an awareness that is much needed in our current day, in our present day. More than ever, there needs to be more light in this world. We need more light. We need more illumination. We need more understanding. We need more awareness. We need to know what the real issue is or the real problem is. As the Course has taught us that there is only one problem and that there is only one solution. And we need to recognize what the problem is, because within the problem is the solution. And we're not going to get into that part of the teachings today, but we're going to focus on our workbook lesson 99, which is entitled Salvation is Our Only Function Here on the Planet. That we came here already programmed with a divine function. And in so doing, and in finding and in fulfilling our divine function, therein lies our happiness. Therein lies our peace. Therein lies our joy. Therein lies our tranquility. Therein lies our purpose. Therein lies our value, our significance. Therein lies our power. Therein lies our creativity. Within the function that was predetermined in us as we appear here on this planet, therein lies the best expression of who we are. And within that function, therein lies the answers to all humanity's problems. We all desire the same thing. We all desire peace. We all desire what? We all desire happiness. We all desire joy. We all desire what? Security. We all desire to be provided for. We all desire relationship. We all desire the same thing. So if we all desire the same thing, and we've been at this thing over 6,000 years or more, depending on what worldview you have, why have we not been able to figure out the problem? Why are we still here in 2022 looking at a world that is so divided, so separated, so polarized? We're looking and observing a world that is where there's only 3% of the population controlling 97% of the resources. We're looking at why are we in 2022 looking at a world where there is homelessness, mass shootings, week in and week out, there's mass shootings, homelessness. Why are we looking at a world in 2022 where the richest nation on the earth, where you have poverty and homelessness, where you have a political system that is so polarized, where you have a nation that is called United States, which is so divided. Why do we have a world in 2022 where there's so much inequality? There's so much prejudice. There's so much of the crab in the bucket mentality that is functioning in our society. Why? When it's said in the course here that there's only one problem and only one solution. Why is things so complicated? Why is the world so complex? Why in 2022 are we 50 plus days into a war between two nations where we are actually in real time observing so much hatred, so much divide, so much devaluing of life? We all seen the atrocities that are being committed. We've all seen the utter devastation that is going on, where one nation is completely out to destroy all of the infrastructure and the structure of another nation, neighboring countries, that people with the people of the same origin. This is not a racial dispute. This is an in-family dispute. And it's been going on for thousands of years. It didn't just happen in 2022. Why is that? Why are we still experiencing in our present day, with all the advancement in technology, with all the advancement that we've had in medicine, with all the advancement that we've had in all the different areas of life, where we have advanced in terms of making progress with providing things that makes life better, makes life somewhat easier. And we've made all these advancements in all the different areas of life. However, when we look at the mentality or the psychology or the spirituality of humanity in 2022, it doesn't appear that we've kept up with all the other areas of advancement. It's still like we're still operating from the mind of Adam and Eve. It's still like we're still operating out of that mindset from the days of the Neanderthal man. It doesn't appear that we've made much advancement at all when it comes to what the socialization. It doesn't the relational, the psychological, or in the area of what just simple peace. We have not. It doesn't appear we've made much advancement. That we still are operating in this belief that humanity is different and that we're not joined as one species. How can you look in the eyes of another human being and not see that we are one, that we are of the same source, that we come from the same life, the same blood, that we share this oneness called life? How can we look in the eyes of another human and not see our own self? We would have to be blind. We would have to ignore the reality. How can you not look at a child? How can you not look at someone of another nationality, of another race or another gender, and still not see yourself? we would have to be what? Absolutely blind. We would have to be absolutely asleep. We would have to be absolutely in a world of fantasy. We would have to be absolutely in a world of dreams. We would have to be absolutely in a world of wild imaginings to have the perception of the world that we see that is being made manifest right here in 2022. And here we're coming off another season of what we call Easter or resurrection, or which serves as a reminder. The Easter season serves as a reminder to all of us that we all have been reconciled back into the one Creator God. The whole story, the whole metaphor, the whole message, the whole motive, the whole idea behind Easter is the fact that there is one God, which is the Father of all, that breathes us all, that looked past our error, or looked past our mistake, because we were erroneous in our thinking and we were mistaken in our perception that we were separate from our Creator, or that our Creator was holding something against us, or that there was an enmity between God and man. Well, all that was put to rest in the reminder of the story, in the reminder of the life, the crucifixion, the death, the resurrection, and the ascension of Jesus Christ, where it all was what? Reminding us that all things have been reconciled back into the one Creator God, and that there is only peace, that we have peace with God, and so that we can have peace with each other. Why? Because in reality, God is love. And in love, there's only light, and in light, there is no darkness. So where did all of this dramatic division and separation come from? How is it possible for that to happen? How is it possible for a loving God that is only light and there is no darkness in this loving Creator? How could we create a world, or how could we find ourselves in a world that is so opposite to what love represents? I'm glad you asked. It could only happen. It could only happen in a mind that split itself, or saw itself split from its Creator, so that it could go on to make a world and make a life that is separate from its Creator. And so that's what we did collectively. That's what humanity did collectively. We all went prodigal collectively. Well, there was a moment in time, and no one can find it. I guess that's what they call the big boom. There was a moment in time when the mind of that which God created embraced the tiny mad idea that somehow, there's something outside. There's something outside of God. There's something outside of heaven. That God has not shown us everything. God has not given us everything. And so in order for us to explore such an impossibility, we would have to fall into a deep sleep. We would have to go into a state of fantasy. We would have to go into a idea of wild imaginings. We would actually have to get into a state of hallucination to think that was so. And so the story was told in Genesis, in the Bible, that that Adam and Eve said, hey, God's holding something from us, so we're going to go check it out. And when they went and checked it out, What they realized was that that was impossible. And so what? In Genesis it said that Adam went to sleep, but nowhere in Genesis it said that he woke up. And so we are still part of Adam being asleep in a dream of separation. We are still a part of that until we individually wake up to the truth that there is no separation, that all is one. That Humpty Dumpty hasn't fallen off the wall and broken into billions and billions of pieces, different bodies, billions of things. A whole world that is what? Totally opposite of love. Where there's killing and warring and fighting and poverty and sickness and disease and pandemics and floods and earthquakes and all kinds of destructive weather patterns. Global warming, global cooling. I mean, this whole dramatic dream of separation in a world that is opposite of that which is what? That which is one. It's what we all as human experience. Only to have desires, only to have longings. There's something in us, all of us, that longs for a home that we know that exists, and that this is not a home. This is not the real deal, that this world is not real. This world is actually an attack on reality. It's really an attack on God to convince humanity, to tempt humanity to think that we're just bodies born to die. That we're just bodies with our limited reach, our limited grasp, that we're just these frail bodies that we spend so much time and energy and resources on trying to preserve them, to keep them intact. Though we know on a consistent basis that these bodies are eventually what? They're going to be laid to rest. Why? Because they're only temporary. And we have confused that reality, that unreality, with the fact that we have refused that fact that these bodies are temporary and that this world is temporary. And we have confused that fact with identifying our identity as these bodies, which is one of the most depressing thoughts that one can have. Why? Because we see the body is only a temporary temporary construction that has a birth and it has it has a day that it will be laid to rest, that we call death. But we know that there is a God that knows nothing about death. God is life. God is eternal. And what God creates is eternal. And so that's this divine longing in all of us that comes from the depth of our being. It says there's something else. There's something that I'm not aware of. There's something that I don't know. There's something wrong with this picture and this experience that I'm having in this human experience. And so that deep longing, that deep desire turns into what eventually we call an inquiry. And we begin to make inquiry into the question, who am I? What am I? Why am I? When am I? Where am I? And we begin to make that, we begin to contemplate on our purpose for being here and what is this all about. And then we come to the conclusion that there is something that I don't know. And we begin to resonate with different spiritual paths that begin to look at that which is metaphysical, that which is not seen. We begin to search for this part of us that is not seen. We know that we have these invisible qualities that are much greater and much powerful than even our physical strength. And we begin to inquire and to meditate again and to contemplate and to self-inquire. And all of us do this in our own way, in our own unique way. It happens in the content of our life. The content of our life becomes the classroom in which we are moved, and we are guided and directed by something that's inside of us that's invisible, but that is very powerful. And so all humanity eventually has this, what we call coming to Jesus moment, where there's an awakening, where there's a enlightenment, or there is a rebirth or a new birth, or where there is a what we call a resurrection that takes place. And so we're coming off this Easter season where resurrection is the message. And what does that really mean? If we're still asleep, we put the emphasis on, what happened in the life of one of our fellow brothers 2022 years ago. We focus on that and say that is what it's all about. But we still find ourselves grappling and struggling, and find ourselves suffering, not knowing who and what and why and where and how we are. But it comes the time in all of our life because God made this promise. And it's called the promise of salvation. And according to the course, it says God's promise. It says salvation is a promise made by God. It's a promise made by the Creator. This is what God's reality of salvation is. It says salvation is a promise made by God that all of us will eventually find our way back home, or find our way back to our reality, or find our way back to our true self, or find out what the answer to the one problem. Because we said there is but one problem. The problem is what? Our belief and our allegiance to being these separate individual selves, the individuated beings, the body identification beings that are limited, that are fragile, that are frail. You know about your body. You've been in your body long enough. You know how needy the body is. And as soon as you take care of one part of the body, well, it needs something else. Each and every day, we have to do all these things to the body, that the body becomes the central thing or the central focus in our life. And it's very needy. How can a perfect creator create something that's it's not perfect? How can a perfect creator create a needy body? It's impossible, right? So no, the body experience that we're having in this world that we're having it in is not a God idea. This is a man idea, a man-made idea from a belief that he's separate from his creator and that he has to now make his own way. As we know, the story said back in the creation story that Adam and Eve had to go make their own way. But that was their choice. That was not their creator's choice. Creator never intended for them to make their own way. Creator never intended for them to divest themselves of the mind of God and take on a mind of separation. That was their own choosing. It's the story of the prodigal son over and over and over again. When God has made his creation just like him, in perfect and complete harmony. But somehow, some way, which I ain't figured it out yet, that this tiny idea creeps in. We have this insatiable inquisition on what is outside of this bliss, what is outside of this perfection. Is there something outside the gate that is better than this? Is the grass greener on the other side? Which causes us to leave our place And we can't leave our place because our place is fixed. So we would have to what, fall asleep and dream of leaving our place of oneness, leaving our place of eternal beings, leaving our place of perfection, leaving our place of purpose. All this happens in a mind that falls asleep. All this happens in a mind that fantasizes. All this happens in a mind that what goes into what wayward imaginings. And then, of course, even describes that describes it as that we have gone into a place of hallucination, believing that we're separate from the loving Creator that created us. And in that belief, we create our own world of separation, division, strife, inequalities, which is the world that we're experiencing. This is the mess that we have made. God has nothing to do with this. This is the mess that we have made. If some of you are natural parents, some of you are natural parents, you got kids, and you created for your kids what you thought was the most loving environment. You created for your kids what you thought was a place of safety. You created for your kids what you thought was you was giving them the best opportunities to develop their gifts. You thought you was creating for your children the best advantage for them to excel in life, only to see your children reject all of it. Only to see your children to say no to the principles and the ideas that you nurtured them in. And a lot of us think that we did it we did it the way God wanted it done. Trained them up in the admonition of the Lord, like the Bible says, only to see our children grow up and become the total opposite in their thinking, in their perception of all of what we thought was giving them an advantage or was showing them the ray of righteousness. And then our children grows up, and the moment they get to make their own decision, they go in the total opposite direction. And we wonder, what in the world are they thinking? How many of you out there have had that experience? Well, that's just an indication. It's still an indication that we've all been touched by the virus of separation, the virus of wanting to be this individuated self, this ego self, what the Course calls it, this self that we believe that we've made. So we make this self based on our own principles. We make this self based on our own ideas of separation. We make this self based on that which is not real, but that which is unreal. And then we seek happiness and joy and peace in this self that we made and in this world that we made, only not to find it. Only to end up depressed, full of anxiety, full of fear, full of disappointment, can't figure out how to put this thing together or to keep it together. And we run into a situation where there's problems after problems after problems, and the world show us that we come to the conclusion that the world is just full of problems and you can't solve them. And so we just resort to numbing ourselves. We just resort to numbing ourselves to what we can't figure out. And so we create all these habits, all these all these magical solutions to life, and we resort to these solutions. We overdose ourselves with entertainment. We overdose ourselves with pain medicine and drugs and alcohol and all of the things that we do to try to find some peace, man. But soon as we get quiet, the moment we get quiet, something continues to bubble up within us. We begin to have this longing. There's a longing, there's a desire. We know that there's something more. We know that there's something better. We know that something is not quite right. There's something that I don't know. If I just knew it, it would make a difference. And you can never escape that. No matter how much we cover up the dundrums of the voice that criticizes us, no matter how deep we get in in the maze of life, no longer how far we fall. Even some of us say we get to the rock bottom. Things have just fallen apart, and life is not even worth living. And all of a sudden, once we get quiet enough, there's this still small voice. This still small voice within us somewhere reminds us of who we are. The still small voice began to speak this melody of love to us. And in this voice, not only is there a message of love, but there is an absolute power that seems to transcend all of my experiences, all of my activity, all of my events, all of my pain, all of my suffering. All of my disappointment, all of my depression, all of my anguish. There's a power that seems to lift me from that place at the bottom. And we come to realize that at my rock bottom, God was the rock at the bottom. Because he said, if you make your bed in hell, I'll be there, because God is everywhere present. Love is everywhere present. There isn't a place that love is. It's everywhere. And so this deep calling comes from a space that is beyond time and space. It's a timeless calling to us. This call, or this yearning, it comes from outside of form and outside of time. It's a formless call. And this formless and timeless response to our yearning and our longing, it comes from a place that has no beginning and it has no end. It comes from a place of peace, a place of joy, a place of purity, a place of innocence. And it wraps its arm around us. And not around us physically, but it wraps its arm around our being, the totality of our being. And in that moment, in that time, there's this sense that we're being loved. There's this overwhelming sense of the presence of love that we've never experienced before. And we have this encounter. And all of a sudden, at the end of this encounter, there's this overwhelming peace that comes over us. And it seems as though that a light has been lit. It seems as though as our eyes have been opened, that our ears have become sensitive to another voice. And all of a sudden, there's a perception about ourselves about the world, about all humanity, and about the one that breathes all of us, that now causes us to relax into a whole new possibility. And then we find ourselves reading a book, listening to someone that is speaking like directly to us, and it resonates with us. Then we find ourselves enjoying ourselves more, wanting more time to ourselves, so we can contemplate, where we can meditate, on what we can call prayer, where we just strip ourselves of all of our history. That we just, like we say, we go into our own closet and we strip ourselves of all of the comings and the goings, all of the activities of our entire life. And we become transparent before this encounter of love, this warm feeling of a presence where there is no fear, there is no doubt, there is no hatred, there is no separation, there is no difference, where there's only love. And now our life appeared to have taken a new path. And what I have just described to you is what God guarantees for all of us. Not the same circumstances or conditions. It can't be orchestrated. It can't be designed like we design. We create religions, and so we got to design ways for people to reconnect with their divine self. It's called religion. And so in religion, they say you have to do this, you have to do that, then you have to go here and go there, then you have to give this and give that. I'm not talking about any of that. That wears out, just like all the other numbing habits that we participate in to try to find some peace. Now, what I'm talking about is what God promised. In Hebrews, it says that when he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself. He couldn't find anyone greater. God couldn't find anything greater than himself, so he swore by himself. He made an oath and a promise. That blessing, he has blessed you. Blessing means what? You're just like me. That's the blessing. That what God created is like himself. And God created all of us like himself. But somewhere along the line, we detoured from that reality and created our own self. Gave ourselves a name and a social security number. And created a whole dramatic world in life we call ours, mine. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to find my way. And like the prodigal son that's in scripture, prodigal son, said, give me my inheritance. I want to go find my way. And the father gladly gave the inheritance to the son. And you know why the father gladly gave the inheritance to the son? Because the father knows there is nothing outside of the father. There's God and there's nothing else. There's nothing out there. God is our only reality. Jesus demonstrated that. He said, I don't do anything. I don't say anything. I don't believe anything. I don't know anything. I don't attempt anything. I don't even think of anything that I don't see or observe or know that my Father does or think or does or is. I and my Father are one. When you see me, you have seen what the Father is like. He knew who he was. He never doubted who was the source of his life. He never doubted what who he was. He did not have an identity crisis. He's Jesus is one of the few human beings that ever walked this planet that never doubted his reality. That's why he's such a world figure. Because what he figured it out, even to the denial of his own parents, when they tried to lay their Jewish traditions on him, he would not embrace them. He said, "You guys make of God an unloving father." To say that God does this and that, and God does this and that, kills, steals, and destroys. God causes this. God is for this people and not for that people. You guys make of God an unloving father, and Jesus always rejected that from Mary and Joseph. You say, Oliver, how do you know that? Well, why do you think he was in the temple at 12? And all the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the temple priests and all the grand teachers were amazed at the wisdom of Jesus. As though he was he taught as though he had been with God. Why was that? He fully embraced who he was. He never saw himself as some body identification or separate self. That's why he could say boldly, "When you've seen me, you've seen the Father." And he is our example. He came here to show us the way. Show us that there's one God, one Father of us all, and that we're all humanity is brothers. We're of one family. That was his message. And now we're still here in 2022, struggling to understand that. We're still fussing and fighting and killing and destroying. And we see generations coming up. I mean, before they even hit 2 numbers in their age, they're killing and fussing and fighting. Why is that? Identity crisis. We think this world is real. We think these bodies we have are real. It's who we are. That is the problem. We've been tempted to not accept and embrace the reality of who we are, even after Jesus said, "I have shown you that this world is not real." And after he said, "You and I, are one." After he said, "Where I am, there you're also." Where is he? He said he's with the Father. He said, "So we're with the Father." But we say, "No, we're not with the Father." We still believe in this separated self. So true resurrection, if you want to talk about, are we moving away from another Easter and we have not embraced the reality of the life that we live as the resurrected life of Christ right now? That we are that resurrection, we are the Christ, that we are the manifestation of love in form, that we are one with God, that God and I are one, that when you've seen us, you've seen the Father, that there is no separation and there is no death, that who we are timeless and formless being, that bodies don't join, that we're all joined in one mind, one heart. That metaphysically, that's where reality exists. That we're metaphysical beings, that the greater part of us, the real part of us, is not seen. But when we still insist on being these carnal, beings, thus we have the mess in the world. So today's lesson is about salvation, God's salvation. And it says God's salvation is a promise. And that he made with himself. He swore with himself. He made an oath with himself that he's not withholding anything against us. That's the oath. That all is well. He said that we would eventually find our way back home at last, like the prodigal son. That eventually all humanity will come to themselves and begin to and begin to embrace the reality of who they are and begin to perceive themselves as the sinless, guiltless, innocent person that they are and walk away from the dream of separation. Is to walk away from the dream of guilt and judgment and condemnation, not only of themselves, but of all humanity. And that they will forgive themselves for the dream of separation and forgive the dreamer, the one who dreamed it up. And just walk away from the fantasy, the illusion, the dream, the imaginings, and fully embrace the truth of who they are. They are the I am, created, innocent, being that God created. That's what will happen to all of us. I don't know, it might take 10 lifetimes for some of us. But it is in this now moment that it's a reality for all of us if we just embrace it. That's it. It's the most natural thing that we can do. It's no bells or there's no bombs or stars or it had to be some big dramatic moment. No. It's the most natural transition or awakening. It's the most natural transition that can happen. It's just like when you wake up from sleep. You go from being unconscious to being conscious. And it's just a gentle It's a gentle shift or a gentle transition, right? When you wake up from sleep. It's natural. And that's the way that the promise of God is experienced with everyone. It's the most natural thing for one to to move from not being able to see to seeing. For one to want to move from being asleep to awake. For one to be in a world of illusions, to shift their focus from that which is an illusion to that which is real. It's the most natural thing that can happen. For a man to be one way today, seeing himself separate, seeing himself in guilt and judgment and condemnation, and on the next day, see himself in the light of God as the light of the world. We've seen it happen to people in our life, and we like, what happened to them? But they just had a gentle transition. And if it hasn't happened to you, it will, because it's a promise and a guarantee by God that it's going to. Why? He knows what he created, and he knows that what he created remains as he created it. And so all of us remain as God created us. Not as bodies, not in limited time and space, but we are the very timeless, formless, ever-present, loving, happy, joyful, eternal beings that God is. We're just like our Father. And when we come to discover that within our human experience, everything changes. Everything changes. And so we no longer we look for these qualities out in life. We no longer look for happiness and joy and peace in life, in relationships, in events, in our activities. We realize that we are the very thing that we were looking for. We realize that we were the happiness and the joy and the peace and the loveliness and the splendor and the beauty and the abundance and the infinite intelligence and the significance that we were looking for. We were it all the time. And so now we take our joy, our happiness, our peace, our abundance, our beauty, our splendor, our love, our compassion, our forgiveness, our Christ consciousness. We take this, which we are, to everything that we do. So regardless of what we're doing, we're being the love that we are, regardless of what we're doing. We're bringing these God qualities to everything that we do. Whether you're just simply sitting down, watching a movie, eating popcorn, you realize that you're not watching the movie to go find some joy and some peace, but you bring your joy and peace to the movie moment. Whether you're in the classroom with your teaching students, or whether you are a student in the classroom, or whether you are simply washing dishes, or whether you are down at the post office and it's your time to move up to the clerk, and you look at the clerk and you give him or her a huge smile and say, "How is your day?" You're bringing your joy, your compassion, your laughter, your peace, your contentment to everything that you do. I'm a huge golfer. I love golf. Every time I go out to golf, I bring all this to the activity, and I have a lot of fun. If I go to dancing, I bring it to the dance, and I have a lot of fun. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're being, whatever your place in life, we're not asking you to change that. It's just that your perception about it now is different. You're not doing it looking for it to do something for you. You bring everything to it. You are the life of the activity. You're the life of the party. You're the light of the world. That's your function. Happiness is your function. You don't go to do it to look for it. You are the happiness that you bring to the event. You are the peace. You are the change you want to see in the world. You are the light of the world, like Jesus said. That you don't hide your light on a bushel, but you put it on a candlestick where everyone can see. See the truth of who we are. So if people are looking for loveliness, you should be the example. If people are looking for peace, you should be the example. If people are looking for happiness, you should be the example. If people are looking what joy looks like, you should be the example. What compassion looks like. What equality looks like. You should be the example. I should be the example. Why? Because we know the truth. And the truth has made us free. Free Free from the slavery of hatred and division and separation. Free from being imprisoned in our thinking, to think that we are different or separate from our brothers. Free from the fear and from the dread of thinking that there is something between me and my Creator, when there is nothing. In fact, there is nothing, to the point that there's only one of us. There is nothing to the point that we don't understand nothing until we get to the point where we understand that I and God are one, that we share the same being that God is. We still have credence. We still are holding on to unbelieving thoughts. We still are holding on to illusions, until we come to the point where we understand that we share the same one being that God is. There are not billions of beings. There's only the one. That's what Jesus meant when he said when the eye is single, meaning one. And he said everything is full of light. Why? Because God is light. And in God, or in light, there is no darkness at all, meaning no exception. So to hold one brother, or to hold one idea of separation, or to hold any thoughts of inequality or superiority, to hold any idea that God loves some and don't love all, to hold an idea that only a few special ones are going to get in or going to be with God, to hold those wicked, evil ideas, it's an indication that what you're still asleep. I don't care how religious you are. I don't care what title you hold. To hold that idea, to make of God an unloving Father, to think that there's a gas chamber or a hell chamber for his children to go to, for you to hold that idea and call yourself spiritual, that doesn't mix. I'm sorry. God is not an unloving Father. Humanity has nothing to be afraid of. And so we need to walk away from what these, if you're afraid because of what fear-based theology, that tells you there's something wrong with that. And you know it. Because fear-based theology makes of God an unloving Father. And it promotes specialness, and it promotes separation and division. The Lord thy God is one. And God is love. God is not fear. Fear has torment. It's tormenting to think that you could possibly miss it and end up in eternity somewhere in a chamber of torture. That's torment. And a huge part of humanity is in torment. It's been tormented with this fear-based theology. We need to stop that crap. It's not real. God is not a murderer. God doesn't hold grudges. He's not a human. We need do nothing. We need do nothing because God has done everything. And our salvation is secure. Why? Because he promised it. He said when he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself, by two immutable things, by an oath and a promise. He's not counting your trespasses against you, your error or your mistakes, because that's all it was. We error in our thinking, which was passed down through us from generation to generation, from generation to generation. This idea of separation. But it stops the moment that we wake up to the reality. There is no separation. There is no torture chamber to go to. That this whole world is a world of illusion. It's a world that was based on the belief in separation. And it was built to and designed to what? Built to and designed to what? Keep all of us in the dark. To keep all of us away from our true identity. To keep us what? Divided and fussing and fighting. To create a long history. Thinking that with the history being so long, it has to be true. No, it's still not true. It's still not true. And when we wake up to the truth, when we are free from the illusion and the imaginings and the fantasy and the hallucination that we are separate from God, when we wake up from that, it's like waking up from a dream. And we just walk away. That's what I mean. We just walk away from the illusion, like the prodigal son. He walked away from the world that he thought was real. And he came back home to his father as though he never left the house. That's why the father said, no, the son that was lost, what's been found, we're going to have a party. And the son was still thinking a little bit, well, I'll go back and be a servant. Well, see, you can't change who you are. You can never be a servant. You are God's prized creation. You would never be a servant, regardless of what you've done or what anyone's done. You can't undo, you can't alter what God did. Because if you can, what you're saying is God's a liar, and he's not. So we would have to be dreaming. Because heaven is intact. Not one note in heaven has been lost. Salvation is a promise made by our Creator that we would find our way to Him at last. And so time will go on until the last one find his way back to Him. So how long will time be here? We know it's temporary. How long will the earth be here? We know it's temporary. As long as it takes to every separated self come to the awareness that he's not separate, but it's part of the one God Himself. That's how long time will last. Because love has forgotten no one. Love has forgotten no one. I don't care how vile the world looks, how evil it looks. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's all playing out like in the movie. And when the movie is over, guess what? When all the projection of fear and guilt and sickness and disease and war and fighting and destruction, when all of it has what? All the realm, when all the film has run through the projector, and we're the projector. We're projecting all this out there. We think this is what? Coming to us. No, we're projecting all of this in the world. We are. Because what? We're the God of this world. We're the one with the power. We're the one with the creativity. We're the one made in the image and likeness of God. And we've taken that in a split mind, and we miscreated a world. That is antithetical. That is anti to reality. We did this. And we're the only one that can undo it. And it's undone in you when you wake up to the reality of the truth that we're speaking here. So the only thing that needs correction here is the mind that believes that it's split off from its creator. That's it. That's why we are employed strongly from Scripture to be not what conformed to this world. Be not conned by what the world is communicating. See, be not conformed to this world, but be ye what? Transformed. Wow, by the renewing of the mind. Why? Because the mind is what creating all of this. The mind needs to be what? Renewed, or to what? Be resurrected, or what? Be rewired to its original state. So it is the mind that believed that it's split off. It was Adam and Eve who thought they were what? They were split off from God. And when God came into the cool of the day and said, Adam, where are you? In other words, he was in Adam, he already knew. He said, well, Adam, where are you? In other words, he was asking Adam, who are you? Who do you say you are now? and the story said that Adam and Eve, they hid themselves. Where did that fear come from? And then he asked me, Adam, where are you? He said, well, God, we hid ourselves. We was afraid. See, where did fear come from? Fear is an illusion. So there's a part of Adam's thinking that got split off from the mind of God that he had. And so it would have to be in a dream. Why? Because ideas leave not their source. We could never be separated from our source. Ideas don't leave where they came from. In other words, God created us like unto himself. In fact, what God created was his very own self. So for God, for us to successfully split off from God, God would have to split himself, divide himself. And that's impossible because a house divided can't stand. So we would have to be dreaming of this. We would have to be hallucinating. We would have to be in wild and vain imaginings to be having this experience. So God promised, and he guaranteed it. He swore by himself. We couldn't find anything that was greater than him. He said, "What? Okay, I swear by myself. I promise you that all that I created, I shall lose none. I haven't lost any." So we look at the world, we say, "Oh, all the world is going to hell, this person, that person." God said, "I have reconciled the whole world back to myself. And I have not," and he said, "What? I have not lost one." Jesus said it himself. "God, all that you've given to me, what? I've not lost any." And he won't just talk about the 12. He's talking about all humanity. Now, God has given us all humanity. When we wake up, we realize what we're responsible. We're part of what this reconciliation, this ministry of reconciliation, where it said that God was in Christ, what reconciling the world to himself. And so we become ambassadors for the kingdom. We become ambassadors for this family. We are the representation in the earth for this family of oneness that is never to be destroyed. So we look on the world and we look past the destruction. Once you get this mind of Christ, this mind of God, you look past the devastation in the world and know that it's not true. It's not real. It's all part of the temptation to get you and I and everyone else to think that God is an unloving Father, and that we have successfully separated ourselves from the one being, and it's impossible. I haven't even got to my lesson that says salvation is our only function here. I was just laying the groundwork. So this reality that God promised that all humanity will eventually come to themselves, that's what salvation is. That's what it is. When you wake up, that's it. And it has anything to do with a religion or a way or no, it's just a simple recognition. When you or I or any human being recognize, when there is just a simple recognition of the reality of their oneness with their Creator and with all creation, that's what salvation is. It's but a recognition. It is that's what enlightenment is. That is what awakening is. That is what the new birth is. We want to make it about a person and a personality. Well, you can do that, but ultimately there's only one. You call it what you want to. We can make up whatever system we want to, whatever plan for salvation we want to, but in reality, there's only the one. We can name it, claim it, blame it, however we want to stir it up, but ultimately, love is what it is. And when one embraces the love that they are, because they were born of love. There's a scripture in 1 John that says everyone that was born of God is born of love. So God and love is synonymous. Even the scripture says that God is love. Therefore, we are love. So when anyone embraced the reality of their loveliness, That's all it takes. Don't have to be under any name, any religion, no. It's an experience that all of us must have. In fact, the Course teaches us that there will never be a universal religion. We would never agree on doctrine. We would never agree on process. We would never agree on. It will never be agreed upon among humanity of one religion. But what the Course does say is that we will all have a universal experience, because love can only be experienced. This reality that God promised can only be experienced. It can't be legislated. It can't be put in a book. It can't be put in a step by step. It's not a step by step process. It's not a 1, 2, 3. No, it is a universal experience where one comes to know himself. The great poet said, know thyself. Why did he say that? Why? That is because to know thyself is to know is to know your creator, because you understand that you and the creator are one. To know God is to know yourself, or to know yourself is to know God, because there's no difference between the two. So yes, like Jesus said, he was the Son of God and the Son of Man. We're the Son of Man in the sense that our parents gave us this physical body. But the body's temporary. The body has a birth and a death. So in reality, the human body can only produce death. So it's not of God. But what God gave us was life. And the life God gave us was before the world was. Like he told Jeremiah, before you was in form, or before you was formed in your mother's womb, I knew thee. That means that we existed before before time and space. That means that we were formless and timeless beings, and that's who we are, just like our Father. You are formless and you are timeless. But you might say, Oliver, but I have a body. Well, it's not that you have a body. It's that you realize that the body is not you. But you have this, what the Course calls a communication device, which is what a body is. It's just a communication device for us to express our true nature in this time and space element that we find ourselves in. But it's not who we are. It's a tool that we use to express the reality of who we are. So it takes a mind. It takes the mind of God, the thoughts of God, or it takes the mind of Christ for us to transcend time and space and to begin to operate in the realm in which we were created, which contains every thought of God, which we are. And when we reconnect with every thought of God, we're able to take these communication devices that you call bodies and expedite, like Hebrews says, we become the express image of the one creator. And so our life becomes like Jesus said, you are the light of the world that lights up the world. And so that's who we are. And here it's saying that salvation is our function. And the salvation is the promise that everyone will wake up. And so now we take our part in God's plan for salvation. By being the light of the world. And forgiveness is our function. And what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is it's a release from the belief in separation. And so we see all humanity as the innocent, timeless, formless being that they are. And so we see ourselves as the timeless and formless being that we are. Never to Never to harm ourselves, never to harm our brother. That is the answer. When we wake up. Like we said, separation was the one problem. Forgiveness is the answer. Salvation is the answer. There was never a separation. There was only a dream of a separation. There was only a fantasy of being separate. It wasn't real. Humpty Dumpty did not fall off the wall and break into billions and billions of pieces. Humpty Dumpty is intact. God is intact. Heaven is intact. And who you are as the innocent offspring, as the innocent inheritance of God, you are intact. Your days of suffering are over when we embrace and accept this reality. Your days of guilt and judgment and sickness and disease and poverty is over when you embrace the reality. I have not even gotten to my lesson, man. So I'm gonna have to cut this, and I'll do the lesson, after this for my groups. But maybe I was supposed to come on here and share this, because that's what came. That's what came out. This is an important message. Or we're going to let another Easter come and go, and we have another year of suffering. We have another year of feeling guilty. We have another year of not embracing the peace that passes all understanding. It comes in the knowing of yourself, not embracing the reality of who I am, not understanding that I have equality with the Father, that I have equality with all humanity. Because where there's no equality, there is no love. Where there's no equality, there's no real relationship. And so God would have to have placed himself within his creation, which is you and me, so that there could be real love. And so, like Paul said over in Philippians 2:5, let this mind be in you that was also in me, that was also in Christ. This, in other words, he was saying this is the mind that Jesus had in order to demonstrate his true reality. This is the mind that Jesus operated in order to demonstrate he was the light of the world. He said, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ, who being in the form of God. Notice now he said, who was in the form of God. Well, Jesus was in a body. Paul said Paul now by revelation say he was in the form of God. So you and I are in a body. Do you know that you are in the form of God? In these bodies? Yeah, right now, you and me. So Philippians 2:5 said Jesus was in the form of God, but thought it not robbery to be equal with God. When he was in a body, when he was a man on the earth, he thought he wasn't robbing God by saying, I have equality with God, because he knew who he was, because he knew that without equality, there is no relationship. Without equality, there is no love, even in our natural relationships. That's why relationships are so difficult. Because there's not equality. At least there's the thought of equality. That's why there's not true love. Why? Because there's no equality. God is the author of equality. So he wouldn't create something and not be equal with what he created. Why? Because he placed all that he is in his creation. And that's us. So the day that we wake up to the reality that we have equality with God is the day that we will begin to experience the innocence, the love, the relationship, the peace, the complete peace. To know that there is no enmity between me and my Creator. And not only between me and my Creator, But me and all of creation, that means that all humanity, there is no what separation, no inequality. When we learn this lesson as a species, the world will change. But until then, we see what happens out there. It's a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath. And just think, in this nation, what all the analysts are saying, what there's a civil war coming. Why is that? So that tells you where the mind of humanity is in these United States. They're predicting that what there's a civil war coming, that there's going to be a bloodbath in the streets. That tells you that man is asleep. Most Americans are asleep. And then they're making fun of the term awake. It tells you how the temptation to believe that you're something that you're not, how to the depth that it will take you if you play along with the game. And so everyone is loading up. What? Everybody's loading up. All of this is motivated by fear. Fear has torment. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but they do it in the name of God. No, they're not. It's not in the name of God. God is love. No, it's in the name of the ego self that they made. I don't know why I'm talking like this morning, but it needs to be said. Is there an ounce of fear in your life, or in my life, anybody's life? It's not anything to be afraid of. It's just to let you know that what some part of me is not thinking quite right. I mean, the only thing needs to change is my thinking, not anything out there, because you can never change out there. We've all tried that. You can never change the circumstances, conditions, and situations in your life. And God didn't call you to change. He didn't call us to change the world. But God called us what? To change our mind about the world, to know that what the world is a false reality, full of false selves that's out to kill each other. And so the miracle, like this book said, the Course in Miracle, the miracle of what is to look on that devastation and what, believe it not. It's not the will of God. So everything we see is not the will of God. But we'll say, yeah, that was God's will. You know, God's will for the virus, for the war, for the killing, for the death. We say, oh, the act of God. I mean, this is how insane we get. You know, we would say it's the act of God. Anytime there's some death or destruction, oh, it's God's will. No, that's a lie. We have gotten we have plunged that much into darkness. But in a nanosecond, one could have that universal experience to where he finally wakes up from the nightmare and see things differently. Hallelujah. All right. Well, hey, look. That just means I have to for those that are following those of you who are a part of the daily workbook lesson 99 I'm supposed to be doing today, I'm gonna have to do it in a separate recording, because this one didn't turn out for me to get there. I think I said what was needed to be said in this moment, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm dedicated to saying it. I'm dedicated to the light. I'm dedicated to sharing the truth, devoted to it for the rest of my life. I am. And then I'm going to walk around just like you. That doesn't make me different from you or different from anyone. That don't make me special. I'm one of you. You're one of me. But it is my desire, like it's the desire of the Father, that we all come into the knowledge of the truth. Why? So we can stop suffering. So we can stop suffering and self-destructing. so we can experience the loveliness that we are. I love the Bible. I love the Course in Miracles. I love the Way of Mastery. I love Urantia. I love your happiness. I love all these. I study broadly spiritual teachings, and I take the best of it. I take that which is the best of it, and I bring it to the light to try to make it as plain and simple, because God is plain and simple. God's not complicated. The ego thought system is what's complicated, but God is very simple. And I use every resource out here. So I don't go under the label of anything. I'm not against anything. I'm for love. I'm not against any religion. I'm not against any, political party. I'm not against any nation. I'm just for love. I'm for love. And so whatever is for love, I'm for that. I am for love. Love only, which brings beauty. So I'm not against anything. So when I talk, I'm not talking against any. That's not what I'm here for. See, truth needs no defense. The light needs no what? The light needs no darkness. And it is our time here in 2022. If you're here on the planet in 2022, it is our time to wake up and stop the nightmare. So that means what? We have to withdraw all of our endorsements into that. Anything that promotes separation, anything that promotes division, anything that promotes inequality, we have to withdraw our endorsement in that. And that doesn't mean you're against it. It means what? That you're for love. Because you're endorsing love. Love can endorse light and darkness. It can only endorse it can only endorse light. Jesus said what? No man can have two masters. Why? He'll either hate one and love the other. We have to become single-minded. Why? Because that's our original state. Double-mindedness never helps anyone. Straddling the fence, being warm or being cold, being hot or cold, or being lukewarm. That's straddling. No. We have to be 100% convinced about love. We have to be 100% convinced about it and have no exception. You cannot have no exception. That means we can't hold a grievance against anyone. We have to let all the sons go free. We have to let all the sons and daughters of God go free. So if we're holding a grievance against someone, that grievance is only covering the light of God that's within us. So we simply let it go. And we only can be holding a grievance from a point of view of body identification, from an ego identification is what I'm saying. So what is holding the grievance? It's not your true identity. It's your ego self holding the grievance. And grievance only covers the light. It only covers the happiness. It only covers the joy and the peace and the creativity and the abundant mindedness. It only covers it up. And it promotes what? Guilt and judgment and fear. So we're doing it to ourselves. So we have to be 100% what? We have to be what? 100% loving. Love is all encompassing. We need to let go of all the traditions. We need to let go of all of the history where we put ourselves and pigeonholed ourselves into one group or one race or one gender or one idea or one party. We need to let all that go. All that does is promote separation and division. It promotes the nightmare. God is not on one side and not on another. That's not God. That's a man-made idea. That's making God in our image, in the image of a separated mind. But the Lord thy God is one. He's not divided. So all of these traditions that we have, all of these commitments that we have to these ideas of specialness, special groups, and what happened to our ancestors or what didn't happen to our ancestors, or what's, all of this stuff all plays into the suffering that we're experiencing. This all plays into that. And so until we become 100% committed to what? To love only. Until we become 100% to what? The reality that what? God is light. In him there is no darkness. Therefore, in my true self, I'm only light. There is no darkness. So I hold no what? I hold no grievance. I hold no resentments. I let the past go. I let all history go. I let the relationships that failed go. I let the hurt and the pain and the disappointment go. I let it go. I release myself out of the prison. And I release my brother from the prison of judgment. That's what Jesus meant when he said, what? Judge not, that you be not judged. Because with the same measure you judge with, it's going to be what? Rendered back to you. And it's not that God is judging us. It's that we're judging ourselves. We've already been judged. And we were found righteous. We were found innocent. We were found whole and complete. We were found eternal. We were found unalterable. We were found loving. That's who we are. We've already been judged. Some of us are thinking, well, God is coming back to judge. Second judgment, second coming. Well, listen, the second coming has already occurred. The second coming has already occurred. And you are that second coming. You are the second coming. So who do you say that you are? Jesus was the first coming. And he declared who he was. And he held that to the end. Now the second coming is you. Do you see yourself different than Jesus? Do you see yourself less? Do you see yourself as, not worthy? How are you judging yourself? God knows nothing but himself. And he knows what he created. And he knows how he created it. And that is you. Your loving, innocent self. Have you embraced that reality? Or are we still what? Operating under the conditioning of this world? How we've been conditioned to think, how we've been conditioned to see and perceive the world, to see everybody as different, and to see us as divided, and to see enemies. Are we still operating under that? Or are we what? Or have we resurrected our mind to the mind of Christ? You and I are the second coming. What have you come to say? What have you come to display? Have you come to display the light? Or have you come to what? Have you come to what? Display the darkness? Choose you this day. You're always choosing. How are you showing up in the world? Are you showing up in the world as the light of the world, which is your function? Are you showing up in the world as forgiveness? Total, complete forgiveness? Because if there's one excluded, there's not real forgiveness. Jesus' brand of forgiveness is that what nothing really happened. It was all a dream. So if it's all a dream, what we can easily walk away from it. If the hurt and the pain, the seeming hurt, pain, disappointment, unfairly treatment that we felt like we got, all of the things that we hold in our minds that said, if this wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened. If all that was in a dream and we woke up from the dream, what would you do? You walk away. Well, it was a dream. Walk away. The suffering and the pain will end immediately. But as long as we hold on to it, as long as we keep enmity between me, ourselves, and others, as long as we keep enmity between ourselves and God, we are embracing the suffering. It's as easy as walking away from it. It's as easy as waking up. So today, declare today that this is your day of awakening, your day of enlightenment, your day of salvation. That's what salvation really is. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you're going to hell or not. That's all part of the dream. That's all part of the fear-based theology to keep you under control. It's all part of that, and that never works. It never will work. All right. Well, look, that's enough. I got carried away today. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I meant every word I said, and it's for our benefit. I think what I said was for our benefit. I think it's good news what I shared with everyone today. And if you think so, just hit me back. If you're watching this live, just put something in the note. Just give me a thumbs up. You can give me a thumbs down if you don't think it's good news. But anyway, so glad that you took the time to listen, even for a minute, or if you listen to the whole thing. Share it with your friends. Give me a like and a share. You can go to the YouTube channel, Truly Foundation, and you can find more of these teachings on there. Actually, this is my 99th teaching. We started back in January, and so we're going to be doing this for 365 days for a whole year. We're in this what we call mind training project that we're on, and there are 365 lessons in this devotional book called A Course in Miracles, and that's where we're doing the training from. We're just adding commentary to what's already there, and we believe that it is a great tool to help us to transform our mind from the illusion of separation to the reality of our oneness. Great tool. That's all it is. We don't worship the book. We don't. The book doesn't even acknowledge the authors, because the authors say, "Hey, this was not their stuff. This came straight from They believe that Jesus authored this book, so they channeled it. And like I posted a little while back, last week, that some people are afraid of channeling. They say, "What's channeling? I don't believe in channeling." Well, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is channeled. If you didn't know it, you're either always channeling the thought of love or the thought of hate. Always, you're making that choice. It's not your original thought. There's nothing new under the sun. And so the vibration that Jesus is in right now, unconstrained by a body, was able to bring this vibration through to human beings who penned it back in 1975. And this has been a great tool to all humanity to help connect the dots and to bring more revelation to humanity, so that we can get ourselves out of this hole we've dug ourselves into. We can't think at the same level that we were thinking when these problems were created. in order to what? Get out of the problem. There has to be what? There has to be a higher level of thinking. God says, what my thoughts are not yours, my ways are not yours. That's the level of thinking that is being presented here in the course. The pure mind of Christ, the thoughts of God. What does he think about himself? What do you think about us? What do you think about this whole dramatic world that we find ourselves in? It's all what explained here in the course in a different way that maybe be different from what you've experienced. But just be open, be open-minded. Only the open-minded she'll get the download. If you're closed-minded, God's downloading revelation. He can't get the download through your closed mind. So open the mind up just a little bit, little willingness. We all need to wake up. You all know that. And so we need to be awakened gently. Everybody want to be awakened gently. You don't go and shake. The child's having a nightmare in the bed. You don't go and shake them, but you wake them up gently by introducing new ideas. And we're doing it over a whole year period so that we're not shocked. So, but can you imagine the progress we're going to make after a whole year of studying these 365 lessons, where the mind is, what space and place and perception and transcendence that our minds will be in. We're on tomorrow makes 100. That means we got 265 more lessons. So if you haven't joined us on a daily basis, consider joining us. And you can find these lessons every day on my YouTube channel, Truly Foundation. It doesn't cost you a dime. It just costs you a little time. What is your time worth? What is your life worth? If what you don't know can hurt you, if the knowing of something could change everything in your life, wouldn't you be interested? I know you would. Thank you so much. I'm going to take us out of here with one of my favorite songs from the CD soundtrack, A Tribute to the General, that was produced by Heaven Bread back in the early 2000s. The lead singer on this song is one of my best friends, Ephraim Daniel. And the name of this song, what is the name of this song? Oh, Gotta Find My Way Back to You, Lord, which is what? Salvation. That's the promise of God. See, salvation is what God promised, that we'll all find our way back to him. So that's the name of this song. Gotta find my way back to you, Lord. Take you out. We'll see you on tomorrow. God bless you. We love you. Peace.
Trying to find a way to escape.
All right. Gotta find my way back to you, Lord. That's the name of this soundtrack. Enjoy.
Trying to find a way to escape all the pressure I feel growing inside of me, because I'm far away from you, knowing that you are my source. So I gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. Gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way. Darkly, I see no light in front of me. I come to the conclusion that you are the eyes that see past all confusion to a place called sanity. You take my hand, I'm free. Lord, I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. Gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back to you, Lord. I've gotta find my way back.
Okay. Bye-bye.